When Ben Affleck sat down for an interview a few years ago, he did something most Hollywood stars avoid at all costs. He looked straight into the camera and said his drinking destroyed his marriage. No publicist spin, no carefully worded statement, just raw honesty about how he lost the woman who stood by him for over a decade. And what Jennifer Garner has said about him since then, it's going to change everything you thought you knew about their divorce. Everyone remembers Ben and Jennifer as Hollywood's golden couple. They met on the set of Daredevil in 2003, and the chemistry was instant. Ben was already a household name after winning an Oscar for Good Will Hunting, and Jennifer was America's sweetheart from the TV show Alias. They got married 2 years later in a private ceremony in Turks and Caicos. No magazine deals, no paparazzi photos, just them, their closest friends, and the beach. Jennifer wore a simple dress, Ben wore a casual suit, and by all accounts, it was exactly the kind of wedding they wanted. Their first daughter, Violet, was born in December 2005, just 7 months after the wedding. Then came Serafina in 2009, and their son Samuel in 2012. For years, you'd see them doing the most normal things. Ben driving the kids to school in their minivan, Jennifer taking them to the farmer's market on weekends, the family going to church together every Sunday in Pacific Palisades. Jennifer made it clear early on that she wanted her kids to have as normal a childhood as possible, and Ben seemed completely on board with that plan. Here's what most people don't realize, though. Even during those seemingly perfect years, Ben was struggling. He's talked about how he felt increasingly trapped and unhappy, and instead of addressing those feelings, he drank. Not occasionally, not socially. He drank in a way that became a serious problem, and Jennifer knew. She knew for years before they separated. In June 2015, right around their 10th wedding anniversary, they announced their separation. The statement they released was remarkably mature. They said they were moving forward with love and friendship for one another, committed to co-parenting their kids. But behind that polished statement was a wife who had spent years trying to save her husband from himself, and a husband who wasn't ready to be saved. The divorce wasn't finalized until October 2018, 3 full years. And during that entire time, something unusual happened. They kept showing up together, not as a couple trying to reconcile, but as parents determined not to let their kids feel the destruction. They'd take family trips to Hawaii, they'd sit together at school plays, they'd coordinate Halloween costumes for the kids, even though they were living in separate houses. Some tabloids thought they were getting back together, but people who understood addiction knew what was really happening. Jennifer was holding the family together, while Ben fought his demons. In 2017, Ben went to rehab for the first time during their separation. Jennifer released a statement supporting him, asking for privacy. In March 2018, just months before their divorce was finalized, he went again. And here's the image that tells you everything about Jennifer Garner's character. There are photos of her driving Ben to that rehab facility. She's at the wheel, he's in the passenger seat, and the look on her face is pure concern. Not anger, not resentment, concern. She was already divorced from this man in every way except legally, and she still showed up. Ben has been asked about his divorce in multiple interviews since then, and he's been shockingly honest. In a 2020 interview with the New York Times, he said his drinking started around 2015 and 2016, and that it created problems in his marriage. He admitted he felt shame about his drinking, which made him drink more. He called it a vicious cycle. In another interview with Good Morning America, he said the divorce made him feel like a failure, especially because his own parents divorced when he was a child. He remembered how painful that was, and he never wanted his kids to go through it. But here's what really stands out. Ben has repeatedly said that Jennifer tried to help him for years. She didn't just walk away the moment things got hard. She fought for their marriage. She set boundaries. She encouraged him to get help. She did everything a partner could do. But as Ben himself has acknowledged, no one can make an addict get sober. They have to want it themselves. And for a long time, he didn't want it badly enough. In a 2021 interview with Howard Stern, Ben said something that really hit people. He said that he didn't want to blame his alcoholism for everything that went wrong in his marriage because that wouldn't be fair to Jennifer. He admitted he had been selfish. He admitted he wasn't always the partner he should have been. He said marriage requires showing up every day and communicating, and he hadn't always done those things. That level of self-awareness is rare, especially from someone who could easily blame addiction for everything and call it a day. What Jennifer has said about him might surprise you even more. In a 2016 interview with Vanity Fair, done shortly after the separation, she was asked if she thought Ben had been faithful during their marriage. She said yes, without hesitation. She made it clear that infidelity wasn't why they split. She said the issues were more complicated than that, and she refused to trash him publicly, even though she had every opportunity to do so. She talked about wanting to create a loving, stable environment for her kids, and how that meant she and Ben had to figure out how to be better divorced parents than they were married partners. Years later, in 2021, she did an interview with The Hollywood Reporter where she was asked about Ben's recovery. She said she's proud of him. She said people can change, and she wants her kids to see their father as someone who made mistakes but took responsibility and worked to do better. She didn't say any of this with bitterness or sarcasm. She meant it, and that tells you something powerful about who Jennifer Garner is. Their relationship now is probably the healthiest it's ever been, even though they're not together romantically. Ben married Jennifer Lopez in 2022, someone he had actually been engaged to back in the early 2000s before he ever met Jennifer Garner. And Jennifer Garner has been in her own relationships, though she's kept them much more private. But despite both of them moving on, they still show up as a united front for their kids. There are photos from as recently as 2024 showing Ben and Jennifer at their kids' sporting events together. They sit next to each other in the stands. They coordinate drop-offs and pickups. When Samuel had a baseball game, both parents were there cheering him on. When Violet graduated from high school in 2023, both parents attended the ceremony together. They're proving that you can end a marriage without ending a family. Ben has said in interviews that watching Jennifer with their kids makes him appreciate her more than he ever did during their marriage. He's called her an amazing mother. He said she's patient, loving, and always puts the children first. And he's admitted, quite painfully, that he didn't value those qualities enough when he had the chance. There's regret in his voice when he talks about it, but also gratitude that she's still in his life in this capacity. One thing that often gets overlooked in their story is just how long Jennifer fought for Ben before the separation. Friends of the couple have said, off the record, that she gave him ultimatums. She begged him to get help. She tried controlling the alcohol in the house. She went to Al-Anon meetings for families of alcoholics. For years, she exhausted every option available to her. When they finally separated in 2015, it wasn't because she gave up easily. It was because she had given everything she had and realized she couldn't save someone who wasn't ready to save himself. Ben's journey to sobriety hasn't been a straight line. He went to rehab in 2001, years before he even met Jennifer. He went in 2017. He went in 2018. He completed a 40-day treatment program in 2019. Each time he's been public about it, which is actually part of his recovery strategy. By being open about his struggles, he's holding himself accountable. He's also helping to destigmatize addiction, especially for men who are often taught to hide their problems. In interviews, Ben has talked about how thinking about his kids is what finally made him commit to recovery. He didn't want them to grow up with a father who couldn't control his drinking. He didn't want them to think his behavior was normal or acceptable. He wanted to be someone they could look up to and be proud of. That realization, he said, was the turning point. Not public shame, not career consequences, but the thought of disappointing his children. Jennifer has echoed this in her own interviews. She said that one of her main goals as a mother is to make sure her kids see both their parents as whole, complex people. She doesn't want them to see Ben as a villain or a victim. She wants them to understand that addiction is a disease, that their father has worked hard to manage it, and that people deserve compassion even when they make serious mistakes. The story of their divorce also highlights something important about addiction that people often miss. It's not a moral failing. It's not about being weak or selfish. It's a disease that hijacks your brain and makes you behave in ways that hurt the people you love most. Ben's drinking hurt Jennifer deeply. It hurt their kids, it damaged trust and created chaos in their home. But Jennifer has never vilified him for being an addict. She's held him accountable for his actions, while still recognizing that addiction is something he battles, not something he chose. There's a moment in a 2020 interview where Ben breaks down a little bit. He's talking about his kids, and he says the hardest part of the divorce was knowing he couldn't live with them every day anymore. He said he hated that his kids had to go back and forth between two houses. He said it reminded him of his own childhood, and he never wanted that for them. But he also acknowledged that staying in an unhealthy marriage would have been worse. Kids pick up on tension tension and unhappiness, and they internalize it. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for your children is end a marriage that isn't working. Jennifer has been asked multiple times if she regrets marrying Ben, and she's always said no. She said they had many wonderful years together. She said her kids are the greatest gift of her life, and she wouldn't have them without him. She's chosen to focus on the positive aspects of their relationship rather than dwelling on what went wrong. That's not denial, that's emotional maturity. What's also worth noting is how both of them have protected their kids from the media circus. When the divorce was announced, tabloids went crazy. There were rumors of affairs, stories about rehab, speculation about custody battles, but Ben and Jennifer never responded to the gossip. They never confirmed or denied rumors. They just kept their heads down and focused on their children. Violet, Serafina, and Samuel were never put in a position where they had to defend their parents or hear terrible things about them in the press, and that was by design. As Ben has gotten healthier and more stable in his sobriety, he's talked about feeling grateful for the second chance Jennifer has given him. Not a second chance at their marriage, but a second chance at being a present, reliable father. He said that she could have easily made things difficult for him. She could have fought for sole custody, she could have restricted his access to the kids, but she didn't. She believed he could get better, and she gave him the space to prove it. Their story isn't a fairy tale. It's not a Hollywood ending where they get back together and everything works out perfectly. But, in many ways, it's better than that. It's a real story about two people who loved each other, who built a family together, who struggled, who fell apart, and who figured out how to still be a family even after the marriage ended. It's about taking responsibility for your mistakes and doing the hard work to become a better version of yourself. It's about forgiveness, grace, and putting your children's needs above your own pain. Ben Affleck's admission about his marriage isn't just celebrity gossip. It's a reminder that addiction affects families at every level of society, that recovery is possible but difficult, and that you can end a romantic relationship while still maintaining respect and care for someone. Jennifer Garner's response to the whole situation shows that you can be strong without being vindictive, that you can set boundaries while still offering support, and that sometimes the greatest act of love is letting someone go. If this story affected you, or if you've been through something similar in your own life, drop a comment below. Have you seen someone you love struggle with addiction? How did you handle it? And hit that like button if you appreciate Ben's honesty and Jennifer's grace through all of this. Subscribe if you want more deep dives into the real stories behind celebrity headlines, because we're not here for gossip, we're here for truth. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.